John, we're fixing. I'll call the meeting to order. We have the invocation with Supervisor Bishop and a Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Angus, please rise.
Heavenly Father, we come before you today to give you honor and praise. We thank you for our great country, and we ask your divine wisdom for all of our leaders here today. May we be given the wisdom and courage in the decisions that we make. We ask that you guide and direct our meeting so that it's full of productivity and respect for one another. We pray these things in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Supervisors may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorney on any item contained on the agenda pursuant to the Arizona Revised Statutes. A motion call to action for an executive session to be held August 20th, 2018 at 9 a.m. for discussion, consultation with legal counsel in accordance with the Arizona Revised Statutes to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Mr. Esplin?
Nothing to report to the board.
Thank you. Committee and legislative report, starting on my left, Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully everybody got to see the letter that was written by our congressional delegation and other members to Mr. Ryan Zinke, hopefully to redo the uranium, get it back on the back so we can start doing mining. We also had Eastern Mojave Conservation Cooperative Landscape Conservation Design Goals and Objectives in the new border of that was set. I think the only thing that would cover it is the goal of this effort is to promote long-term conservation in the Eastern Mojave Desert. This will be done through successful collaboration and pooling of resources. Working with partners, we will identify important social values, resources, stressors, and trends, as well as potential actions in areas where partners can work together or individually to apply their skills to collectively achieve conservation objectives. So nothing will happen.
Thank you,
That's all.
Supervisor. Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Bishop?
I don't have anything legislative to report, but I have been pretty active talking to ADOT engineers and committee members in the Dolan Springs area in the fire department in regards to Pierce Ferry Road and Highway 93 and the problems we're having there with a lot of traffic accidents.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus?
Nothing this morning.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
At the DCP meeting, there were many people there trying to look at Arizona's problem with the water, and everybody seemed at the first meeting to want to work diligently to work together to make sure this situation was taken care of.
Thank you, Supervisor Wakamoto. My report, I'll make fairly brief. We are actively engaged in our disagreement with the Mojave Valley Irrigation and Drainage District, and we will continue to do so. County Manager's report.
I have no report today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, great. Item number 4, approve the June 18, 2018 board minutes.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion
Second.
and second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. On the call to the public, those wishing to address the board at the call to the public regarding matters not on the board agenda must fill out and submit to the clerk a call to the public request to speak form. They're located in the back of the room. It must be done prior to the meeting. Action taken as a result of the public comments will be limited to responding to criticism, referral to staff, or placing a matter on a future agenda. Comments are restricted to items not on the regular agenda, with the exception of the consent agenda, and must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. First speaker is Michael Nesbitt.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. I'm Michael Nesbitt, reside at 5301 Covina Road in Fort Mojave, Arizona. This morning, I'm here to talk about the lease agreement with Section 20 of the BMX facility in Bullhead City. I'm requesting the board to suspend operations and terminate the lease immediately due to the breach of the following provisions. Number one, the construction of the facility. He was agreed that he would come back in 6-month intervals and update on the status, the number of attendees and such, and to the best of my knowledge, he's yet to do that. Also, a big one is the premises should be safe and clean. As you know, in the handouts you have, there's some pictures there. There's rusty fence poles along one of the fence lines with the rolled up rolls of fencing that he took out of the facility. He just left it there, didn't bother to take it to the trash. Also, there's a picture here of like curbs that have been cut up into chunks, and they're just thrown in the parking lot in the middle of the one driveway that was there. And there's kids play out there, so it could cause a hazard out there. There's weeds all over the front entrance of the property. There's pictures in your pamphlets of those. He actually rounded up some of the weeds to clear them out, but just put them in a pile in the middle of the parking lot. I don't know what the cause of that was to say he cleaned them or not, but it just made it look worse in my opinion. He was operating the facility for 2 months with no porta potties. To me, that's a very big health issue and potentially damaging to kids' psyche if they were to urinate themselves in front of peers, and then who knows how long they have to live that down. And he didn't seem to have any problem with that. To me, that's a very big issue. To run a business without restrooms is just unacceptable. Since he's had those, there was a storm about a month ago. Those porta potties actually got knocked over on their side. They were there for 3 weeks because he doesn't regularly go to the facility. He closes it pretty much all the time, as you'll see later on. I don't know what damage, either if those leaked out on the facility or what, but that's a really big issue. People driving by see it. It's just distasteful in my opinion. The bleachers on the facility, they look broken. I have a picture right here, sorry. Here's the bleachers. There's a stack of wood behind them, just loose laying wood. There's a piece of wood, you can't really see because it's black and white, but right here, this is just a piece of wood that's propped up just to be there, I guess. I don't know, there's no structural value, nothing other than to cause a hazard for a kid. On the provision 20 of the lease accounting, they agreed to have an annual report to the board by no later than June 30th. They've failed to do that I know of. And that's, to me, I want to know what he's doing. He has a free piece of land and he's not accounting for anything. 22, the big one, is compliance with laws. He's been operating this facility for 8 months with no Bullhead City business license. To me, that's a slap in the face to every single business in the county, in the city. That's downright wrong. He's given a free piece of property and literally not paying anything. No taxes, no Bullhead City business license. How's he operating? The bleachers are unsafe, as you can see in the pamphlets, the codes for bleachers. The gaps in between footboards and seatboards, if they're higher than 30 inches, can't be big enough for a 4-inch spear to go through. The picture here, you can see they're wide open. I went to one of the events he had at the facility with my 9-month-old child, and I never knew what kind of hazard those actually cause until I had my child in the bleachers, and he actually almost fell back through the bottom, and it scared me. And that's what made me kind of like reevaluate this and make sure someone's holding him accountable, because I've tried and it's been to no avail lately. The building on the property, another big issue. He didn't open this facility for 3 months until after he was granted the lease, when he promised you guys he had a team ready to go. This was his excuse for not opening the building. The windows and doors were damaged. He claimed he got a quote of $2,500 to replace 1 door and 2 windows. I don't know what construction company he asked, but he can give me that contract, and I'll do it tomorrow, because that is an extremely high price. I don't know if you can zoom in or I can pass this picture around. There's probably 6-inch down, like sharp edges of glass cut from when the window was broke. He acknowledged it was broken in February and said he would not open until it was fixed. He sent a email to Supervisor Angus, which she forwarded to me. I replied to her, that price is outrageous, but okay. March 9th, I replied and let her know he's opening and has yet to fix those, so that couldn't have been the reason he didn't want to open. And yesterday I took this picture.
If you could wrap
Okay,
up.
yesterday I took that picture, so as you can see, they're still not there. And then, pretty much the thing is, he hasn't been operating the facility like he said. On the lease, it says he'd be open to the public. There have been 32 dates that are scheduled by him. He's operated 12 days of those. To me, that's unacceptable. It's
Mr.
just not right for the
Nesbitt, you're a
public.
little over on your time. I appreciate your coming this morning. We'll certainly take your information, and thank you for your concern.
Chairman Watson, may I ask Mr. Hendricks to put this on the next meeting's agenda for an update from Parks, and maybe we can even get Mr. Henry in as well.
Mr. Chairman, we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Royanne Ortiz?
Hi, my name is Royanne Ortiz. I live in Bullhead City, Arizona. I had heard about this article being published in today's News Herald out of Lake Havasu. And the headline was, Arpaio claims Ward was aggressive at the Mojave County event. Now, I'm concerned about this because I was one of the organizers of the event. So I talked with a couple of people who were actually there and witnessed what happened. And what this article says happened did not happen. So now we sit and wonder, well, I think we have 3 major newspapers in our county. I think they're all owned by the same company. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. I keep track of what goes on with Mojave Daily News because that's where I live. So I know they're pretty much accurate most of the time. But this is utterly outrageous on the things that are reported, and I just wanted to bring it to the notice of the public that it is the press that does things like this, and then they wonder why we think they're an enemy of the people. I can tell you why, because they don't tell the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Stephen Robinson?
Stephen Robinson, 5373 Highway 90 of 68, Golden Valley. 8 years ago, March, this board passed a dress code. Supervisor Johnson and Chairman Watson, you voted for a dress code that made this shirt illegal. Thankfully, that was overturned after the new board took office. After the new board took office, there was also an institution of call to the public, which I greatly appreciate, because this is what we're having now. What you are doing, though, by requiring people to give out their address at the beginning contradicts state law on the call to the public. It doesn't require that. It simply requires they state their name. I've been at other public meetings where that's all they require. We submit to the board, or to the clerk of the board, our address and phone number. I think you should look at reviewing and correcting your policies, because if it violates state law, you shouldn't be doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mary McCord Robinson.
No relation. So I'm Mary McCord Robinson. I live at 2626 North Twin Hills Road in Kingman. I'm going to read a letter. This is actually from Jim Morgaine, who could not be here today. It says, I have asked Mary McCord Robinson to speak on my behalf so I can address an urgent veterans issue with the La Paz County Board of Supervisors at their meeting this morning, which overlaps in time with your meeting. Contrary to recent public statements by several supervisors, the Mojave County Board of Supervisors does have the power and authority to rezone Mojave County. And exercising this power would create an immediate moratorium with respect to the commercial agriculture that is threatening water sustainability, particularly in the Kingman Basin area. Section 11-811 of the Arizona Revised Statutes provides every Arizona county, including Mojave County, with the power and authority to adopt zoning ordinance in order to conserve and promote public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare. The power and authority to zone and rezone is provided in Section A, then limited in Section C for railroad mining, metal grazing, or general agriculture purposes, if the tract concerned is 5 or more contiguous acres. So your hands aren't tied. You have the power and authority to zone and rezone the county. Why are you not fighting to have this outdated limitation lifted? I'm certain every one of you would stand up and fight relentlessly where the state law is trying to limit Second Amendment rights. Are water rights really less important than the right to bear arms? Make no mistake, there is no health or general welfare without water. Please stop sitting on your hands as you pass the buck of responsibility for Mojave County's unsustainable water management plan onto these outdated Arizona state laws. Stand up and fight for our water, start pressuring our legislators to do their job, and introduce revised legislation that will lift the unnecessary restrictions these antiquated laws impose upon your power and authority to rezone Mojave County. The fact is your hands are anything but tied. You have the power to stop the water draining commercial agricultural in Mojave County. The question is, do you have the backbone to do it? Signed, Jim Morgan.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. I would highly recommend that you read Proposition 207, and that would give you an indication of what our limitations are concerning zoning. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank
Ian Fahey? Okay, thank you. That concludes the call of the public.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Supervisor Johnson.
At our last meeting during Call of the Public, I was accused of lying and writing false statements, that's a quote, regarding an animal abuse case. I didn't respond to the accusations at our last meeting because I wanted to pull all the records. Now that I have the facts compiled, IT can put them up on the board. I'd like to respond to the accusations and get the truth out once again. First off, I want to point out that everything I'm about to say comes directly from documents obtained by the Justice Courts, or from the Justice Courts and the County Attorney's Office. You can see these documents on the viewing screens. On December 20th, 2017, 21 dogs and 7 cats were seized from 3967 Mormon Flat Road. The woman who owns the property was given 24 hours prior to the seizure to construct humane living conditions for all these animals as is required by law. A complaint had been initiated on December 19th, prompting animal control to go to this property because the complaint alleged the animals were not being properly cared for in a humane fashion. These animals were placed with animal control until a court hearing could be set to determine if returning the animals to the care of the property owner was in the animal's best interest. A court hearing was then held on January 4th. The judge listened to both sides and felt there was enough evidence to show that the animals were subjected to, I quote, cruel mistreatment, neglect, and abandonment in this property owner's care. Based on that cruel mistreatment, the court ordered that the owner's rights be terminated and that the animals be forfeited. I will point out that at least one animal died of a parasite infection that it had come in contact prior to being seized by animal control. The parasite is known as Giardia and is found on surfaces or in soil, food, or water that has been contaminated with feces. Aside from the animals being seized, criminal charges remain against the property owner pending in court. The next hearing for those charges will be October 1st. The photographs that I showed of this mistreatment of the animals and description of the property came directly from public records pertaining to this case. Neither Mojave County, the people I represent, nor myself will stand by while animals are cruelly mistreated in this manner. I would like to applaud our justice system and the animal control officers involved in the case for doing their due diligence to ensure that the animals were removed from the horrible situation and ultimately placed in loving homes and given a second chance to live out the rest of their lives. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Johnson, thank you very much. We have a proclamation this morning proclaiming that August 2018 as Child Support Awareness Month. Do we have a copy of that proclamation in hand? Oh. I'll tell you what, I think we can probably make this proclamation in support of Child Awareness Month. All right, on to the consent agenda, items 5 through 46. Start with Supervisor Johnson. Do you have any items to pull?
44.
44. Supervisor Bishop?
I don't have any.
Supervisor Angus? 24. 24?
24, yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
None.
None? And I have none also.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve consent minus items 24 and 44.
We have motion
Second.
and second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. On to item number 24, Supervisor Angus.
Okay, yeah, I just, it looks a little confusing. It's the approved post-site election boards, all election board members and deputy elections personnel for the 2018 primary election, and allow the election director to fill all positions through election day. I just want that to be kind of explained from elections. There he is. I knew he'd be here.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Supervisor Angus. Okay, it's a thing that we do before every election. It's a routine thing, and I usually bring it a little closer to the election date, but it was brought to my attention from our county attorney when I submitted the item that it had to be done within approximately like this time frame, 20-some days prior to whatever. That's why it's on this agenda as opposed to being closer to it. We recruit about 400 people to work the polls on election day, and the statute says we have to bring them in front of the Board of Supervisors and get approval of the people, so then we submit the names in case you all have an issue with it or you would want me to possibly discuss adding somebody or not. And the deputy elections personnel is just a phrase that I made up. For instance, the people that help me do the early boards on election night and throughout the time, get the ballots ready for counting and write-in boards and all that group of people. So that's what that group is, and the other ones are my poll workers, and I was just asking for y'all to approve the list of people I have.
Okay, so we're going to get a list of the poll workers?
That was attached as backup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
Got
like
it.
300 and something, close to 400 names. And as I say, we lose people constantly. I mean, we're probably losing people as I'm down here speaking right now. I can't do nothing about that, right? But Nancy could be on the phone trying to fill those spots that are being vacant. That's why we led the elections director to fill vacancies as necessary. Because I know I need approximately so many people at a polling place to make it run functionally, and we lose them up as much as a day or two or three beforehand. So we try not to fill them at that spot because we're doing training as we speak right now. We just got back from the Arizona Strip 2 weeks ago. We were in Lake Havasu last week, Bullhead, Mojave Valley tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Kingman the following that. So we get the people to training and do the best we can.
Right. I wanted you to come down and talk because this is your busy season, and we know how hard you work in your department, and thank you very much, and look forward to when it's all over.
Oh, yeah, no more than I am, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Chairman Watson.
Supervisor Bishop?
On the backup material from page, I think about 7 or about 12 pages after that is a list of all those appointees.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. That concludes our consent agenda.
No.
I'm sorry, 44.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to note and thank the courts for submitting their report along with the county manager's report. That's all. With that, I'd make a motion to approve.
We have a motion for approval. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is carried. Sorry, I overlooked item 44. On to public hearings. Item number 47, I'll open the public hearing for the discussion of possible action for the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-095, an amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from rural development area land use to commercial recreation land use designation, and an amendment to the Desert Hills Fire District Area Plan from a rural development area land use to commercial recreation land use for Assessor's Parcel number 120-23-004 in the Lake Havasu City vicinity, and that's east of Highway 95 and south of Coronado Road. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 47? Anyone wishing to speak to item number 47? Okay, I'll close the public hearing for item 47. Chair would entertain a motion.
I move that the amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from an RDA development, rural development area land use designation to a CR commercial recreation land use designation, and an amendment to the Desert Hills Fire Department District Plan from a RDA rural development area land use designation to a CR commercial recreation land use designation for Assessor's Parcel. Keep on reading. 120-23004 in Lake Havasu vicinity.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Questions?
Questions of the
Supervisor Johnson?
planning and zoning? Does this land have any services available to it? Electricity, water, sewer?
Let me see. I don't believe there's any water or sewer to the property, no. Chris, hold on. Find my backup real quick, get you answered. Let's see. The site is not served by water or sewer, no.
And what about right-of-way? I don't see any official right-of-way given this.
The right-of-way, the applicant has acquired right-of-way through BLM. That was sent out last week. Well, the letter from BLM indicating that they would be approving the right-of-way was included in the packet, and then last week a map showing the location of the right-of-way acquired by the applicant from BLM is also shown, or was sent out to the board.
But that's not showing the same as the right-of-way that they're putting on their maps they're going to use.
Yes.
That's the problem I have. It shows the right-of-way running down the one they're using, but the one that's supposedly they've gotten. I still don't see anything that makes me believe that they have the right-of-way from BLM, but the roadway out there doesn't appear to be the same one that they're getting from BLM.
My understanding is that they've received the right-of-way from BLM, and all of that is in order.
We have the applicant, please come forward.
Good morning. Chris Blackwell, 4050 Crest Lane, Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Yeah, I have the 30-year lease right-of-way from BLM with me. It changed from the original one. You're correct. The original one was going to be off of Lone Tree Road, and that changed because there was some excessive road work that was going to have to be done to get to the property. So BLM worked with us, and they actually brought up the second one, which is on here. It comes off of Havasu Heights Road, 45s from, in essence, Havasu Heights Road and 95 to the northwest corner of our parcel, completely through BLM land. We don't have to access any county land, any other private property.
Okay, that was my concern. So you won't be running any vehicles through Havasu Heights at all?
None whatsoever. I'm not sure if you can see from the map here. It goes from Havasu Heights Road, relatively close to 95. It starts on BLM land, goes completely through BLM land, and ends in the northwest corner of ours. We don't have to traverse any other private property, any county property. It's BLM land to our property.
Those are the questions I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Okay. And if I could add, we actually have the letter of intent to serve from the fire department also. It's tentative. We have to do some road work, but that was a concern on the last meeting, was the right-of-way and the fire department serving us. And Supervisor Wakamoto, I believe, has a copy of the intent to serve letter from the fire department.
Thank you. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, we probably ought to have a roll call vote.
Chairman Watson, if I may, just a point on the application. The applicant actually requested, just I guess to give a little bit of history on this item, it came before the Board of Supervisors in March, and at that time there were still some concerns about the access and fire service. At that time, the applicant it was recommended to the applicant that they withdraw it so that they could confirm the right-of-way, get all of that in order, and then come back. In that action of withdrawing, it required the applicant to reapply with the county. So they actually paid those fees a second time. The applicant has requested that as part of this action, that the second round of application fees be refunded to them. Staff has no objection to that. Majority of the work that was done the first time around, basically we saved it and used it for the second time around. So the addition, there was not significant additional work in order to run this the second time. And just as a point, had it been tabled rather than withdrawn, he could have had that time to do that rather than have to reapply. So that if it's the board's pleasure to add that to the motion as well, that would be the request of the applicant.
Chairman Watson, so who made this suggestion it to be withdrawn instead of tabled? Was it us or was it you or?
It was suggested during the meeting to the applicant that if he got a no vote from the board, he would be out in a year in order to continue. However, if he withdrew it, then he could come back before the board and have it considered.
Right, so it's just sort of an administration, the wording of it. So yeah, I think that's the right thing to do, actually.
Okay, well, I need an amendment to the motion.
I'll amend the motion to also refund the second application fee.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for the amendment. Legal?
That's fine.
You're copacetic?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Watson, could I
Supervisor
ask the
Bishop.
sheriff to come down and give us his views on this?
Certainly. Sheriff Schuster? Would
I think they could probably do it on the second item, maybe? Or it's a two-part. Maybe Supervisor Bishop, that you could get those questions answered on
you
the
want your
second part.
questions on the second part?
Sure.
Okay. All right. There being no further questions, if you'll roll call.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
No.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 48. We'll open the public hearing for discussion, possible action for the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-096 for the rezone of assessors parcel number 120230004 from an agricultural residential 36 acre minimum to a commercial recreation 36 zone to allow for an outdoor bar and recreation facility in the Lake Havasu City vicinity. This is east of State Highway 95, south of Coronado Road. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 48? Anyone wishing to speak to item 48? If there being none, I'll close the public hearing for item number 48. And Chair would entertain direction.
I'd like to hear from the sheriff also.
Good morning. Sheriff
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, distinguished members of the board. I apologize, it's Monday. I had to step out, take an urgent call. What is the question I'm here to answer?
Sheriff Schuster, myself and I think the other board members would like to know your feelings on this outdoor bar and recreation facility that's being requested in the Lake Havasu area.
Very good. Supervisor Bishop, we don't oppose it. This has been going on for some time. This just kind of congregates them in one place, but there's a lot of outdoor recreational use in the desert area, and so we don't oppose this action.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Schuster.
Thank you.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion for item number 48.
I move that we adopt BOS Resolution Number 2018-96 for the rezone.
I'll second.
We have motion and second for the rezone of item number 48. Any further discussion? There being none, I recommend that we do a roll call.
Chairman Watson, same request on this one as far as the fees being paid the second time. From the applicants also requested that the fees be refunded on this one as well.
Okay, that would require an amendment.
I amend my motion to include the repayment of the second permit fees.
I'll second.
Okay, we have an amended motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, if you'll do a roll call, please.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
No, with an explanation. I had a constituent come to me for a similar request for return of building fee funds and was told that the county doesn't refund fees. So based on the comment from the sheriff, I'd be willing to pass this, but not to refund the fees, so my vote is no.
Thank you, Supervisor Bishop.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
On to item number 49, open the public hearing for discussion, possible action regarding the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-097. That is for the denial of a special use permit for Assessor's Parcel Number 210-56001 to allow for an off-premise sign in the general commercial highway frontage zone in Lake Havasu City vicinity, south of Gateways Drive, west of State Highway 95. In the Mojave County General Plan. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial by unanimous vote. I have one person signed up to speak to item 49, so Mr. Robinson, come on up and expound on item number 49.
Stephen Robinson, Golden Valley. When I looked through this agenda item and saw the backup, I was surprised that the general plan calls this section of the road from Colorado River to, basically, I assume, I hadn't looked at the details of the general plan, but to Kingman as scenic, and that's the basis for denial. I strongly encourage you to, if at the very least, postpone decision on this item and take a real close look at the general plan, because that section of road is anything but scenic. And so the fact that you won't allow a billboard right next to a commercial exit, a very busy commercial exit, seems counterintuitive and anti-business friendly, even though that's not your intent. Your intent is to follow the general plan. If someone were to build a business right there on that 1.87 acres of property, they could put up a sign as high as any of the other signs in the area, if I understand correctly, unless they've said no signs are allowed there. And they could advertise that business even if it was a massage parlor. So having a business off-premises sign right here near this exit, I believe in principle, at the very least, you should continue this motion, or continue this to another time and take a close look at our general plan that says that this is a scenic area. I've driven that road, I've been on that road many, many times, and I know that it's desert, barren desert, until you get to Kingman. So that's my only opinion on it. I hope you will consider it, and we'll take a look at least postponing it, because to deny it means he has to wait a year. If you postpone the decision or table it, then at least you can have a chance to look at the general plan and say what's right or wrong with the general plan. Thank you. Any questions?
Anyone else wishing to speak to item number 49? Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have a presentation I'd like to present.
Sure, please step forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Brad Sourbeer. My address is 309 Orchid Street, Casimir, Washington, 98815. Do you know if it's loaded?
It is. Somebody has to come.
Okay, there we
There
go.
you go for you.
So, do all of you have access to what I have on the screen? It's on your computers? Okay, good. So, I just put together a small presentation here to kind of go over what's going on here. This is deemed a scenic route, which I think is in error. I'm not sure how it happened, but it did. The off-premise signs are permitted on this particular lot and other lots along parcels along the Highway 95. This is a map of the actual location. It's it's only a half mile from I-40. This is the hard to read map that shows a scenic designation from La Paz County all the way up to I-40. Not sure where this came about or who approved it, but there it is. This is another map showing that Area 7 is Desert Hills. Now in the Desert Hills Fire District, they have a scenic designation boundary occurring approximately 3 miles south of this proposed location. So there's some conflict here as to whether this is really a scenic corridor. Now, from all of our own viewpoint, we could conclude that it's not. It's got a truck stop. It's actually got several truck stops. When you think of scenic, you think of the Grand Canyon, areas like that, not the Love's truck stop at I-40 and 95. So we did some research. The other signs that are allowed by the businesses there are allowed of similar size, but they can be taller. They can be 45 feet tall, where our off-premise billboard can only be 35 feet tall. So our use is restricted slightly. There is a large market for advertising in this area. There's a very strong business community in Lake Havasu that have encouraged me to build this billboard. They would be interested in advertising on. So as a board, this is called a special use permit. Here's some more pictures of the truck stop and so forth. And I would request today, that since you have the authority and the power to approve this, that you do that with the understanding that this is called a special use. It's a permitted use in this zoning district. And as far as I can tell, there's no objection to my special use permit. Usually if there's an issue as a board, people come running to these meetings, object to the potential use. Well, that hasn't happened in this situation. There's actually been no response negatively. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak to item number 49?
Could I have Tim Walsh back up, please?
Uh,
Is the public hearing closed, Mr. Chair?
We're still open to the public hearing.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that the scenic designation is what the problem is, and also that if we were to approve this sign, that it would be considered spot zoning per planning and zoning.
Supervisor Wakamoto, members of the board, Mr. Sauerberger was correct in one aspect, and that is that the general plan gives one guidance to us for the location of the scenic area, and the Desert Hills Fire District area plan gives us another. What Section 42 of the ordinance says as far as scenic vistas is that the wording basically is there would be no no off-premise signs, billboards in essence, along Highway 95 leading up to Lake Havasu. Historically, we've always interpreted that to be from the intersection with I-40 all the way down to the Lake Havasu boundary. And that's been the basis of denial. If the board approves the application before you, then what we would basically do is start interpreting that sentence to be south of this commercial area.
But is this spot zoning? Because speaking to members of your planning and zoning board, because this is in my district, I called you and I also called the planning and zoning board to figure out the problem with this situation. And I was told that if we approve this, this would be considered spot zoning, which we've had several issues on spot zoning before. So you are saying this would not?
Supervisor Wakamoto, members of the board, this is a special use permit, so there's not a rezoning involved in it. The zoning already exists. It would be a precedent-setting decision, however, regardless of which way it went. So if the billboard was approved, you could expect other requests for billboards in that same area, and the staff's recommendation will probably come back for recommend approval.
Supervisor Angus.
Before it went to planning and zoning, what was staff's recommendation?
Supervisor Angus, members of the board, staff's recommendation has always been for denial.
For denial.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak to item number 49? There being none, I'll close the public hearing for item number 49.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the denial of item number 49.
We have a motion for the approval of the denial.
I second it.
And a second. Any further discussion, questions? There being none, if the clerk will roll call.
Supervisor Angus?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
And Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously for the denial.
Thank you. On to item number 50, open the public hearing for the discussion and possible action for the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-098 for the rezone of Assessor's Parcel Number 204-16017 from an agricultural residential 36 zone to an AR5 zone. Minimum lot size would be 5, and to bring into the parcel into compliance in the Mojave and Kingman, Arizona, Mojave County vicinity, east of Singer Road, north of Wilson Ranch Road. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, 6-1. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 50? Anyone wishing to speak to item 50? There being none, I'll close the public hearing for item number 50. And I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-98 for the rezone.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, if you'll please do a roll call.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
And Chairman Watson.
Thank you, yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to item 51, open the public hearing for the discussion, possible action for the approval and adoption of the proposed Mojave County Ordinance Number 2018-04, an ordinance setting forth an amendment to the Mojave County Ordinance Number 2015-04, which was adopted by the Mojave County Building Codes to include local amendments that are more responsive to the local building industry. This was approved by the Commission by unanimous vote. I have no one signed up to speak to item 51, but I will call the public. Anyone wishing to speak to item 51? There being none, I'll close the public hearing.
Chairman Watson, I believe this was the result of some pretty hard work last year by the Building Advisory Committee and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I want to thank them for looking at some of our policies and changing it to be more responsive to the public.
Very good. Thank you very much. Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve item 51.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, if the clerk will call roll.
Supervisor Angus?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
And Chairman Watson.
Yes, thank you.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll now go to item number 52. This is concerning financial services. I'll open the public hearing for item 52. Sitting as the Board of Directors of Mojave County Flood Control District, conduct the Truth and Taxation public hearing to receive public input on the Mojave County Flood Control District for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. I have a number of people wishing to speak to that item. Katie Manning.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Katie Manning. I live at 3941 East Ames here in Kingman. My concern with the flood, so I don't have to come up here 3 times to speak. It's the flood, it's the library, and it's the TV. That will cause my taxes to go up $90 a year. And that's prior to possibly next year, where you might increase property taxes. My concern with the flood is what part of the flood are these monies allocated to? What area are you working in? How much flood money do you have right now? and you're going to be generating a good deal of money. And we just need it spent wisely. But we, the citizens, would like to know where it's being allocated to within the flood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. John Lutitsky.
Good morning. I'm somewhat confused, and I have to apologize because I wanted to speak on taxes in general, and part of my talk would be on, at the end, on item 54, and I don't want to waste the board's time. I would be more than happy to wait to speak on the flood issue, but if it's violating some kind of rules, then I would bring it up now.
Why don't you come back on 54?
That would be fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak to item number 52 concerning the flood control district? There being none, I'll close the public hearing for the flood control district. On to item 53, I'll open the public hearing, sitting as the Board of Directors, the Mojave County Free Library District, to conduct the Truth and Taxation public hearing to receive public input on the Mojave County Free Library District for the fiscal year 2018 and 19. We have Katie Manning and John again on those items. Do you wish to speak to those, to the library district?
I'd like to condense it into item 54 again.
That'd be fine. Do we have Katie Manning in the audience? Thank you. I'll close the public hearing from item number 53. Now on to item 54. I'll open the public hearing to conduct the Truth and Taxation public hearing and final budget for the public hearing to receive input on the 2018-19 proposed final budget and tax levies. Now we can have Katie Manning. All right, Mr. Lutinsky.
This might make me run over a little bit on time, but I'll try and do it as quick as possible. I appreciate your guys' time. My name is John Lutinsky. I live at Sand River Ranch Road, and I've been here over 30 years. And I'm not quite sure on my time. As far as the library goes, I think when the employees' parking lot is fuller than the customers, I think somebody should take a strong and hard look at that. First, I'd like to know if the board spends the same amount of time trying to lower taxes as they do trying to raise them. I know what you say the money will be used for, but I also know that at times it goes to pad the retirements of favored retiring employees. Okay. But I also know that at times it goes to pad the retirements of favored retiring employees that are giving a raise at the last minute on their way out to increase their monthly retirement check. Is there any kind of program or committee that is looking into how we can save tax dollars or spend them more efficiently, or better yet, not at all? Taxes can go down and still the county goes on, no problem. When the market and the real estate values crashed, so did the tax income. The county was forced to tighten its economic belts. Can we construct a county fuel yard or depot in the long run, make money on volume purchases? Can we lease instead of owning? Are people driving county vehicles for personal use? Are they permitted to do this, and is the county looking the other way? Can the county employees contribute more to their own retirements and benefits? Has there been a study for wage and compensation to see if our employees are overpaid and underworked? What is the private sector getting for the same type of labor? I will say right now, it is probably far less than our county employees. Holiday pay, retirement, wages, benefits, sick pay, dental, eye care, full or partial medical. Should the employees be paying more as compared to the private sector? Between 2017 and 2018, the state brought in a record $10.1 billion. That's with a B. The last time you raised taxes, you said it was because the state took our county money. Is the board or any member trying to get our money back or asking for the increase from the state to compensate us for the loss of the funds? If you keep raising taxes because you feel the need, I am here to tell you the people in the county on fixed income will organize and do something like Proposition 13. That made people in government really step back and get a cold shower on limited taxes they could now get, which was very limited. And that's what's being looked at right now. Flood control. In February 2010, $172,390 was given to them for a watershed strategic planning study. This was for the areas of Kingman, Golden Valley, Mojave Valley, Lake Havasu to minimize flooding. I ask you now, just how many studies do we need and how much money is enough? What was wrong with the study? Can it be used again? Did it expire? Did it get lost or sold like our water rights were? I do not have the time or the energy to do research on taxes or their alternatives, but the county does and gets paid for their time. I would greatly appreciate it if you would use your time wisely and look into lowering our taxes, not working overtime on how to raise them. Thank you very, very much.
Chairman Watson, may I ask this gentleman a question? Do you know the last time this board raised your property taxes?
Yes, it was during the time of Ron Walker.
Okay.
It was at that time. I was told at that time it was only 2% and that it wasn't that much. And I had said at that time that increasing his retirement pay at the very end and also raising my taxes for other fixed income people was an adjustment.
Sir, but do you realize that this board hasn't raised your property taxes in 6 years?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and at
one point it went down when the crash hit. Like everything else I had went out the window.
So I just want you to know that we are working hard to keep your taxes low, not raise them.
I agree with that, but I would like you not to raise them at all and work harder and looking for ways of decreasing them more.
Okay, I actually agree with you on that.
That's all I ask for is more thought. Mr. Watson and Madam Bishop understand me, and thank you guys for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to item 54? I see you're signed up to speak to 58, but go ahead.
I'll speak to that one as well. I'm going to put something on the board here. It's a chart showing of how much the fund balances were, maybe you can, in the 5 years, the general fund balance projected by the budget, shown in the audit, and shown in the treasurer's report. While the rate has increased and the property taxes have not gone up that much, there has been a couple rate increases.
Mr. Robinson, the rates have not increased?
The rates went from 196 to 211, didn't it?
Not in this year.
Pardon? For this past fiscal year?
No.
Okay. It's still 196?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's good, because then I'll stand corrected on that.
For
Thank you.
clarification,
Here's my point. The rates obviously are too high when the amount of money in the coffers from whatever sources, because the one you can control is the property tax rates. You can't control how much money you get from sales tax, vehicle license fees, service fees. Yet when you look at this chart and you see that the fund balance has gone from, audited fund balance has gone from $12 million in 2014 to, it'll be close to $30 million, the audited fund balance for this fiscal year 2018. The cash in the bank, what you show on the budget says 26 million, but the treasurer's report, which is your actual bank balance, shows $32 million in that account as we speak right now, as of June 30th. And my point is simple. The bank statements, the treasurer's reports, have been within $1 million on average of the actual fund balance over the last 4 years. So we're looking at a $31 million general fund balance. Now, what's important about that? Just 2 years ago, Coral Lloyd submitted a statement saying that the appropriate fund balance 2 years ago should be $16 million. Well, and the year before that, in the original fund balance policy, it was called $15 million was the appropriate amount. Yet we're being told it should be 24, 25, 30 million. Maybe it's time to say, let's either use some of this money for the needs like the Sheriff's Department and other departments that are still running, you know.
Mr. Robbins, can I ask you a question?
Is it a personal attack?
No.
Okay, what's the question?
Do you realize that Mojave County is in debt to the retirement systems?
Oh, absolutely.
To the tune of $40 million?
No, it's $102 million, but 15 years ago, before the last downturn, because it's an actuarial-based thing based upon the projected need and the values of...
So you understand why we might need a...
Okay, but it could, in 5 years, it could be back to where we have an actuarial surplus. So if, you know, I understand that there's a problem with the pension. I certainly understand that.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
I certainly do. And my point is this. Allocate and find the needs for the money. If there's, when you have this much of a surplus, last year you only gave $500,000 extra to the Sheriff's Department. Well, clearly you have a lot more. And that's just all I ask is one, either reduce the tax rates to a rational level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Anyone else wishing to speak to item number 54? Good morning.
Good morning, Jennifer Jones Esposito, 3211 East Snavely Avenue, Kingman. I'm going to say the same thing that I said last year during the budget. You all sit up there as Republicans, and the Republican platform is smaller government and lower taxes. And, you know, I hear often on Facebook, oh, Mojave County, we're the poorest county in the state. That's not actually correct, but we are down there in the bottom. And, you know, the economy is doing better. Projections came in above what was expected. You know, Supervisor Bishop said last year, we're going to have to raise taxes eventually, might as well do it now. That's the wrong attitude to take. You know, the legislature often gives you the opportunity to shift funds around. You have surpluses in certain areas. And of course, the county does have a problem with the pension system. That's why if I'm elected, I'm not going to participate in the pension system, because both the elected officials and the public servant pension system, it's a problem, but it's not just a problem for this county, it's a problem for every county in the state. But the problem is when you raise taxes, it affects the poor, and we do have a lot of poor and a lot of people on retirement income. But it also affects people in Supervisor Johnson's district who pay a lot of taxes and really don't get a lot in return for that. But if the economy is doing good, and you're getting more money than you expected, and you have huge surpluses in certain funds, then maybe you really need to look at sharpening your pencil and moving some stuff around before you go against the Republican platform and increase taxes. This goes for any tax in any district all the time. I really believe in lower taxes and smaller government. The purpose of government is not to provide services to the people. This might be a surprise if you haven't actually studied history in this country lately or brushed up on it, but the purpose of government is to ensure the freedom of its citizens. That is the primary purpose of government. And nothing does that better than allowing them to keep as much of their own money as possible in their own pockets and spend it on the things that they choose, not on the things that you choose for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Watson, may I say something? Again, I'm a little confused about sort of the anger, because did we raise taxes this year?
Not aware of it.
And we did all those things that Ms. Jones talked about. We moved money, we found money, you know, we fight amongst ourselves, but we get it done. And we've been doing it. And I want to remind everyone, the county's part of your tax bill is only 17%. Is that it? Is that correct? And there's these, but the bigger part are your secondary taxing districts. And I suggest, if you're really angry about your taxes going up, that you go to those meetings and boards, because they're the ones raising your taxes. I believe almost every secondary taxing district in this county is raising their rates. So when you look at your tax bill this year and you go, oh my God, how did it go up so, you know, and then you want to come here and yell, go there and yell. And I suggest everyone look at the pie chart on your tax bill that cuts it down into exactly where your money's going. I think you'll be surprised. But this time, this board is not raising your taxes this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. I have a question, might be for Ms. Lloyd or Manager Hendricks. Do we need to include the TV district in the open public hearing?
I believe we have to set as the TV district to do it.
Pardon me?
I believe we have to set as a TV district separate to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, the statutes do not require that. The statutes specifically spell out the districts that you have to include in a TNT hearing. It does not include the TV district.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing on the truth and taxation for the public for the proposed year 2018 and 19, and the proposed final budget and tax levies. On to item number 55. Sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mojave County Flood Control District, a discussion possible action for the adoption of Mojave County Flood Control District rate of .50 per $100 assessed evaluation, the levy of $8,044,517 for the fiscal year 2018 and 19. This is the same rate as last year.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Did we receive any input from the cities if they wanted this lowered?
Mr. Hendricks, did we receive any notification that the cities wanted to lower?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, what I did was I met with flood control and had them in depth explain to me what they believe that their issues were regarding the flood control district tax and the allocations with the cities. And it was our opinion that we've identified a couple areas that are inequities. One is our alert warning system, where the county's paying 100%, yet the benefit is distributed through the cities. I've talked to the city managers regarding this particular issue and told them that it would be, because we are so deeply into the budget process, it would be an issue that would be addressed next year in the next budget process early enough so that they could account for any changes or any modifications in their budget. So I haven't received no requests from the cities, but except for a concurrence that now is not the time to address it this late in the season, and that any addressing of any changes would be next year for next year's budget.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question? Supervisor Johnson?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to, because I got a couple of emails and calls this morning, because in the Kingman paper today, it said that we're taking action to raise these rates. And again, it's some kind of odd formula that no one seems to understand, but I want to make it clear that these rates are the same rates as last year. We're not raising any of the rates. I know it was confusing in the backup material, but it's not. So I would appreciate if the paper would correct that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. All right. Any further discussion on item 55? Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? There being none, I believe this calls for a roll call.
Supervisor Angus?
Aye.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to item number 56, sitting as the Board of Directors, Mojave County Free Library District. Discussion, possible action for the adoption of Mojave County Free Library District tax rate of .2716 for $100 of assessed evaluation and levy $4,919,191 for the fiscal year 18-19. I might add that this is also a no change in the rate. This is the same rate we've had for the last several years. Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
I second it.
and a second. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to item 57, sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mojave County Television District. Discussion, possible action for the adoption of Mojave County Television District tax rate of .02 per $100 assessed evaluation for the value of fiscal year 2018 and 2019.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
And Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to item 58, discussion, possible action regarding the adoption of the Holiday Shores Lighting District tax rate of .0125 per $100 of assessed valuation and levy $3,900 for the lighting district for the year 18 and 2019.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion for the approval
I'll second it, and I wanted to comment that this was a lowered rate.
and second. Note, it is a lowered rate. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Now on to item number 1. The Board of Supervisors will now recess into their regular meeting and convene into a special meeting pursuant to the revised statutes 42-17105 to take action to approve by motion and roll call vote the fiscal year 2018 and 19 primary property tax levies in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes 42-7107 and adopt the fiscal year 2018-19 final budget with modifications as desired. Okay, so we are now in recess of the original meeting. And we now open for item number 1, the discussion possible action for the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-99, thereby adopting the fiscal year 18-19 property tax levies and final budget with any applicable modifications. Okay, we have several people wishing to speak. Mr. Robinson? I'll grant you the latitude of speaking on this item because it looks like I overlooked your ability to speak on item number 58.
And I meant for 57, so thank you, I'll appreciate that. And all I wanted to say about item 57 is the 2 cents is not even enough to cover the operating expenses, but it's enough to justify sweeping.
Pardon me.
I'm sorry, are you referencing item 57? We have recessed from that
but it's
meeting.
part
We
of
are
the-
now in the special meeting.
Anyway, because the point being is, you sweep monies from these districts, and you shouldn't be sweeping money from a district that has plenty of reserves, and you shouldn't have a rate. I believe that tax rates should be lowered to match how much excess money you have in the budget. And I gave you that list earlier, and here's how inaccurate the county budget over the last 4 years has been. They've underestimated the amount of cash carry forward by an average of almost $4 million. And that means that every year the pressure for tax increases comes from...
Mr. Robinson, I believe when I'm reading your notation here, you said $4 million a year. I'm looking at the average of 970.
Oh, that is reference to what the Treasurer's report says. The Treasurer's report has averaged only 900.
I'm just trying to follow your line of thought.
Okay. The left-hand column is
all the scratches.
The left-hand column is the variance of the reported budget numbers versus the audited numbers. The right-hand column is the Treasurer's report, which is your bank balance, versus the audited numbers. And my point is, the budget report every year for the last 4 or 5 years has understated the amount of money carried forward by an average of at least $3 million, if not more. And that's my point is, when you don't have the correct numbers to make decisions, then the pressure to raise taxes is paramount. Supervisor Angus is correct that she has voted against tax increases consistently. This board last year, or the year before, I can't remember which, voted for a 26% tax increase based upon perceived needs.
I beg your pardon, sir? What year?
There was I think it was last year, was a vote for 26%. It was then rescinded. It did not pass, but the preliminary vote by this board majority.
Let's concentrate on what was passed last year and the previous year. Now, as I recall, we've not had an increase in property taxes in 4 years.
Well, but there is a slight increase in the amount of property tax collected, not due to just because of the assessed values going up.
And that's due to the assessed value.
And that's a good point. But my point goes back to, when you have excess money, then the point is you obviously should be looking at lowering the rates. And that's all I'm saying is, when you have additional funds that you're not taking into account and pleading poverty, then that's the problem. You're pleading that we don't have money, when those figures I showed earlier show we have a lot more money than you've been admitting to. I do appreciate you giving me the time.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
And have a good day. And it will be, fortunately, it'll be the last time I speak today.
I'm trying to calculate in my head the $800,000 versus the $38 million in total property taxes, and that would be an increase of about less than 2%.
Chairman Watson,
It provides for Mojave County's growth, is what it reveals. We're here today, and I don't know of any rate that we're changing. Supervisor Bishop.
I just wanted to say that Mr. Robinson, I'm sure means well, but what he does is he confuses numbers and he uses different methods to confuse the general public. And as you can just see by his presentation, his note was difficult to read and his ramblings was difficult to follow. So I just wanted to point out that Mojave County does have some financial experts who were audited by various organizations in the state and everything. And we're right on cue, and we have the numbers on paper that's available to the public.
Thank you for
Correct numbers.
clarification, Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have Royanne Ortiz wanted to speak. Is that correct?
That's correct. Royanne Ortiz from Bullhead City, Arizona. The reason why I'm up here speaking on the budget is because I actually haven't reviewed it like I did last year. But because I've been told, well, we're not going to raise the taxes. But I seem to recall from last year that public safety was a big issue last year. And you know what? I think it's still an issue this year that it's getting ignored. Because I seem to recall that one way you were going to handle this was you were going to put something on the ballot, like an increase for the voters to vote on to take care of the public safety issue. In other words, the sheriff doesn't have enough deputies, and he can't compete with the other police forces in the area, and he keeps losing people. And I don't think any of that has changed. So I'm wondering why this board has not put on the ballot for the voters to vote on an increase of 1/4% sales tax for the people to vote on. That's my message now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak to item number 1 on the special meeting? Okay. Chair would entertain a motion.
Chairman Watson, I make a motion that we adopt Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2018-099, thereby adopting the fiscal year 2018 to 2019 property tax levies and final budget with any applicable modifications.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, Madam Clerk, if you'll call roll.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn from the special meeting and resume our regular meeting. On to item 59, discussion, possible action, acknowledge the receipt and refer to Public Works a petition to Mojave County Board of Supervisors requesting that Silver Dollar Road from Blake Ranch Road to Line Drive, a distance of approximately 0.4 miles, and Line Drive from Silver Dollar Road to Towhee Road, a length of approximately 1.7 miles, be accepted in the Mojave County road system for regular maintenance, subject to meeting all applicable requirements and subsequent for board approval.
Chairman Watson, I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, Supervisor Angus is... Shall we wait?
Your call, sir.
I hate to make a vote without the entirety of the board when they're present.
And we wait.
So we shall wait just a couple minutes. We have a motion and a second on item 59 for the approval of the acceptance. And any further discussion? Okay, there will be no further discussion. You'll call roll, please. Thank you.
Supervisor Angus? Yes. Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes, thank you. On to item number 60, discussion, possible action, acknowledge the receipt and refer to Public Works, a petition to the Mojave County Board of Supervisors requesting that West Abrigado Drive from South Lochi Road to South Lagerta Road in the Golden Valley area, a length of approximately 0.25 miles, be accepted in the Mojave County road system for regular maintenance, subject to meeting all applicable requirements and subsequent to board approval.
Chairman Watson, motion to approve.
We have a motion. Second. And a second. Any further questions? There being none, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Wakamoto?
Yes.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. On to item 61, the discussion, possible action, approve the supporting of the activities of the Kingman Water Sustainability Committee, established by the City of Kingman Common Council, which is intended to function as a working committee to enhance and coordinate work between staff members of the City of Kingman and Mojave County in identifying opportunities for resource sharing, joint funding of water supply projects that will benefit residents of both county and city in order to promote the sustainability and resiliency of the Wallapai Valley groundwater basin. Authorized participation of the committee of 3 Mojave County staff members, Mr. Nick Hunt, Senior Engineer Tim Walsh, Development Services Director Shannon Summers, the Flood Control Programs Manager.
Chairman Watson?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve supporting the activities of the Kingman Water Sustainability Committee as enhanced by item number 61.
Okay, great. And I'll second that motion.
Discussion, Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Johnson?
I support this, except I don't support the idea that we're going to have to hire Nick Hunt back.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last portion.
I support it, but I don't support bringing Nick Hunt back and us paying for that for their committee. If we wanted to split his fee with City of Kingman, I'd be for it, but not for us to carry the whole burden.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Yeah, on that note, I
Supervisor
didn't really think of it that way, but, so, when Nick Hunt's still on the payroll in sort of a part-time consulting, is that it?
That's correct.
Basis? Would this be more, or this just be included? I mean, would this mean more work and more money?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Angus, this wouldn't be any more money. He's limited to the amount of hours that he can work. He submits an hourly report. I really haven't discussed with him whether this would be something he's volunteered with the city for, but the way it's written, it would be something that we would support and pay his hourly for attending the meetings. And like last week, he's accurate on how much work he's submitted for the past 2 weeks, and it was like 8 hours worth of work, and it was directly related to better stewardship and the recharge of the Wallapai Basin.
How much time do you think this is going to take?
I don't know. Nick is in the audience. We could ask him to give us a little rundown of what's being expected if you'd like to come down.
Yes, please, Mr. Todd.
I'd like to say hello anyway.
Yeah.
We're paying him for this meeting, though. So.
Good morning, Mr. Hunt.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Angus, I'm here to answer any questions you have.
No, how many hours do you put in usually?
Well, I don't work regular hours. I work pretty much as needed, and the only work I really do is under the supervision of County Manager Hendricks, is related to the water-related, groundwater-related issues mainly. And what I've been doing is creating projects. And I'm working closely with the flood control district, and we have created about a dozen projects. So some of them are already designed, some of them we have conceptual designs, and we have cost estimates. So the goal would be to supply a good portion of the water supply around here by recharge. Okay. And I want to emphasize enhanced infiltration, because recharge kind of requires other permitting from the state. So working with the flood control district, benefiting the flood control purposes by reducing flooding of streets and recharging that water before it hits the populated areas.
I guess my question was just how much time do you think that this committee is going to take up from all that work? That sounds very important.
Right, and I met with the city manager, and they asked that question, and I said I only could agree if it's a working committee and it doesn't create any extra work. So basically, that would benefit, I think it would benefit the county that we kind of work together with the city and pool resources together, but it's still on our part would be Tim Walsh and Shannon Summers from the Flood Control District. And what we foresee is presenting those projects and setting priorities for those projects, and then assigning an estimated project cost for each one of them, and then having the priorities, see if we can make an impact. And
how often is this committee going to meet? Do you know?
It's not decided. The committee hasn't met, or haven't, probably once a month. And what I foresee personally would be just going through the projects that we have. I have to add that the city has some projects on their own. One of them is they already did a conceptual design, and they're hiring an engineer for a detailed design for recharging their wastewater, their treated wastewater, which would provide about 20% of the city's annual water need. So it could make an impact on those things. And so we have about a dozen projects, and adding those together, it would be going into the same base. We basically
okay, so maybe we can get, like in 6 months, some kind of update about this committee, and how much, is it worth it, the time that we're investing in?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's an excellent idea, plus the knowledge that can be provided to the board and update us, because Nick's deeply involved in and is going to be involved in establishing the best management practices so that we can be better stewards of the Wallapai Aquifer.
Okay, thank you, and hello.
Supervisor Angus, may I suggest, if you wish, if the board wishes, we're glad to give you updates as soon
That's exactly what I asked for.
When you want, because that's all it is. It's a working committee and creating projects, and then see what we have and priority list and the progress. I think that would be very beneficial for everybody.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you.
I have some questions of Mr. Hunt, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Johnson.
Mr. Hunt, now that you're on a fixed income, my thing is that we've hired Mr. Hunt to do jobs like he's saying and come up with projects that he's helping the county with. Having him sitting in a meeting when we can have our staff that's paid to sit in meetings is great. We want, or at least I want, results from Mr. Hunt, and I don't think him sitting in meetings is the best use of our county tax dollars. I know Mr. Hunt loves to sit in meetings, but that's all I have.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I believe because Nick is a leader, and whatever the board decides, obviously, but I believe because Nick is a leader and he has special skills in not only managing but also in engineering. He's an incredible talented engineer, and his field of practice was directly along the lines of what he's doing for the county right now. The city recognized his talents and skills and actually wanted him to chair and lead that group so that they have some definite direction and they don't flounder. And Nick was instrumental actually in deciding the makeup for this special committee that will benefit the county and the city. So there was a reason that he was chosen. He's the point person for this actual committee, and I'm hoping that by placing him in this unique position, he's not only just going to be a participant and sitting and listening, he's going to be leading the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. And the comment that I have is, I think it's extremely important that Mojave County and the City of Kingman continue to work together to solve this problem. We know we're facing, at some point in time, the Wallapar aquifer in decline, and everything that we can do in conjunction with other governments is very important. I also know that Nick also attends the RCD meetings, and that's very important for the Big Sandy Resource District. As long as we can get as many members of the community working on this problem, I think we can make some positive influence on it. And thank you very much for willing to serve on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And may I just echo what County Manager Hendrick said, and just to address Supervisor Johnson's concern is that I had concerns myself participating in any committee, and so I told the city manager that I would only do it actually if I be the leader, and I want to be the chairman of it. And so I want to make sure we actually working on projects. We're not just talking there, but we're presenting projects and we're working, and then we're setting priorities and setting goals and actually getting some resource sharing with the city, so they're going to be participating and doing some work too, because right now we are pretty much doing most of or all of the work.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
I appreciate that, and that's a good job for a citizen volunteer to do.
You're right. You're right.
Mr. Hunt, I'm pleased that you're willing to take leadership in this role. And with that, I'll make a motion for the approval of supporting the activities of the
Excuse
Kingman
me,
Water Sustainability Committee.
We already have a motion and a second to approve.
We already have a motion, a second?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Item number 62, the discussion, possible action for the adoption of Board Resolution 2018-100, supporting the continuance of Amtrak train service to and from Needles, California, and other rural communities. Anyone wishing to ride the train here lately? Motion to approve. We have a motion. I'll second the motion for approval. Any further discussion?
Chairman Watson, I would like to just point out that there's approximately over 9,000 passengers in Mojave County that uses Amtrak services each year. I think it's important for us to join the Tri-State Council in supporting the resolution to continue this train service for communities, including Kingman and Needles. And the elimination of the Amtrak passenger train service would be devastating to millions of Americans who would lose access to this type of transportation. So I'm happy to support the resolution.
Thank you, Supervisor Bishop. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. On to item number 63, discussion, possible action, provide the direction to staff and legal counsel on becoming part of a class action lawsuit for the underpayment of PILT funds from fiscal year 15 to 2017. This is brought to us by Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought we'd jumped on this, but I guess staff is waiting for some direction from the board. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. We can get $90,000 that's owed to us. I had the backup there, so assuming you already read it and know about it.
Chairman Watson?
Supervisor
So when I
Bishop.
saw this, I read the backup, and I called CSA to see who has joined so far, and just Cochise and Apache. Yavapai declined, but I was told that they're assuming that they've been led to believe that the other counties will, but I still had a little, like, sort of gnawing feeling. I thought, Well, maybe, I know our delegation worked very hard this year to get back the PILT money, and I didn't want to do anything that would be deemed kind of insulting or undermine maybe some of the work. So I reached out to Congressman Gosar, and he supports it. He supports our efforts. He said, anything to, get the federal government to give us back. So I'm now happy to support this, knowing that our delegation is for this.
Okay, so
Chairman Watson, if I could piggyback on that comment.
certainly.
So on Friday, I met with other civil deputies throughout the state. Not all the civil deputies were there, but a good portion of them, pretty good representative of the counties throughout the state. And I asked the same question. We brought this issue, who else was participating, who wasn't. Supervisor Angus is correct. Yavapai took no action. They have chosen not to participate. I guess they could change their mind, but for whatever reason, Yavapai has not. To give you give you more of an update, Cochise, Navajo, and Yuma have all joined in. They've all submitted. In addition to that, I was told that Greenlee has submitted their paperwork as well. Pima and Santa Cruz will be bringing it to their board in the next couple weeks or so, and they anticipate that they will also be joining as well. So it looks like Santa Cruz and Pima, Cochise, Navajo, Yuma, and Greenlee, so far 6. And I think also Coconino County was contemplating it as well, and we're going to be bringing it back to their board as well. So,
okay. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. For any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. On to item 64, discussion possible action, direct staff to submit legislative proposal on amendments to Title 36, Chapter 7, Article 2, Arizona Revised Statutes by amending Section 36-831 relating to the deposition of human bodies and burial or cremation responsibility to the County Supervisors Association for their 2019 legislative program. Supervisor Johnson, would you give us your outline for this item?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. It's becoming increasingly worse, not only in our county, but other counties, where family members are not taking care of their deceased ones. They're not even getting as bad as where they won't even have them transferred out of the home, leaving it to the county to pick up the tab, and the county, the taxpayers, to pay for other people's deceased relatives. And this would change the law if it goes through, so that we can actually collect from the estate when this is done, because what's happened in the past is the county picks up the remains, handles all the funeral arrangements and everything, and then when we go to collect, the families they're ahead of us on the list, and they take the money and leave the taxpayer to pay the burden. So that's what this was brought forward for.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this forward. We discussed this last year, I think,
yes,
at length, and it's just it's disgusting to me that family members would not take the proper care of their other family members. So with that, I certainly support it also. Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of item number 64. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 65, discussion, possible action, approve Mojave County's 2019 CSA legislative program of proposals and allow for additional proposals to be brought forth as needed. This is brought to us by our representative, Supervisor Gene Bishop, to the County Supervisors Association. Supervisor Bishop.
Yes, we have 3 proposals to add to Supervisor Johnson's proposal. There's 2 from the Public Works Director and 1 from our Indigent Defense Director, and they're included in the backup.
Very good. Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you for your participation today. Meeting is closed.
You bet.